A marriage of convenience, and a man she flaunted around town. Chapter 1. It was 1:15 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. In the dark, I fumbled for the screen and answered. The sound of a deafening bass line and Scarlett Vance's slurred voice came through the speaker. "Caleb, I've had too much to drink. Come get me." In the background, a man's voice asked, "Who are you calling?" Scarlett giggled. "My husband." I sighed, throwing back the covers. "Send me the address. I'll be there in 20. After hanging up, I stood in front of my walk-in closet for a beat before selecting a dark charcoal cashmere coat. Scarlett liked me in this color. She said it made my features look sharper. Even though our marriage was just a contract on paper, I never skimped on playing the part of a devoted husband in public. The black Maybach in the garage was as silent as a sleeping beast. I buckled my seatbelt as the navigation system displayed the destination, a new members-only club on the Lower East Side called Labyrinth. Fitting, I thought. 15 minutes later, I pushed open Labyrinth's heavy, soundproof doors. A wave of heat, perfume, and stale champagne hit me, and I subtly wrinkled my nose. The lighting was dim, but I spotted Scarlett immediately in one of the VIP booths. She was wearing a crimson velvet dress that made her skin look like porcelain. Her long, wavy hair cascaded over a bare shoulder, catching the ambient light with a honey-colored sheen. A young man was sitting next to her, their heads close together as they spoke. I recognized his face, some new male model who had appeared in a photo on Scarlett's Instagram feed last week. I walked straight toward them, my leather shoes making a sharp, distinct sound on the marble floor. Scarlett looked up, and her eyes lit up when she saw me. She held out a hand. "Honey," she cooed, her voice sickly sweet. The model eyed me warily, his arm tightening around her. Scarlett's had a lot to drink. I could take her home. I didn't bother looking at him, speaking directly to Scarlett. "Can you walk?" Scarlett wobbled to her feet, only to be pulled back down by the model. He looked at me, a challenge in his eyes. "She doesn't want to go with you." I unbuttoned my coat and sat down opposite them, pouring myself a glass of sparkling water. "Scarlett, make a choice. Come home with me, or stay here and keep drinking with your friend." For a moment, a flicker of clarity returned to Scarlett's eyes. She shook off the model's hand, grabbed her clutch, and stumbled into my arms. I smelled the mix of her perfume and gin, with a faint, underlying scent of jasmine. The shampoo she always used, the one perpetually stocked in our master bathroom. "Of course I'm going home with my husband," she said, tilting her face up to smile at me, a cunning glint in her eyes. I steadied her, then gave the scowling model a curt nod. "Excuse us." The moment we stepped outside, a blast of cold air made Scarlett shrink against me. I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. This was hardly the first time she'd called me, feigning drunkenness, to come pick her up. The car's heater was on full blast. Scarlett kicked off her heels and curled up in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on the blur of neon lights outside. I glanced over and saw the delicate gold chain on her ankle, the birthday gift I'd given her last year. I was surprised she still wore it. "What's this one's name?" I asked, breaking the silence. "Leo Foster," she replied without turning her head. 22. College student, part-time model. Younger than last month's tennis pro. Scarlett whipped her head around, her eyes sharp. "Are you keeping a tally of my boyfriends?" "Clause 3 of the contract," I said calmly. "Neither party shall interfere in the other's private life." I was just making conversation. She let out a soft huff and turned back to the window. I knew she was angry, though I couldn't be sure why. Scarlett's moods were as unpredictable as a summer storm. As we pulled into the long driveway of our Greenwich estate, Scarlett spoke suddenly. "You know, when we were 10, you dragged me away from my birthday party just like this." The memory surfaced instantly. The Vance family had thrown a massive party for her, inviting half of New York's elite. The little princess, dressed in a frilly pink dress, had been cornered and bullied by a group of boys until she cried. I was the one who found her hiding in the garden, piggybacked her out of the party, and bought her a soft-serve cone from an ice cream truck down the street. "You were a lot more honest back then," I said. Scarlett didn't reply. When the car stopped in the garage, she walked straight toward the house, her back perfectly straight, all traces of her supposed intoxication gone. It was 3 a.m. by the time I finished showering. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed with a cool blue light. I swallowed a sleeping pill, turned off the lamp, and lay down. In the haze between wakefulness and sleep, I felt the mattress dip beside me, followed by that familiar jasmine scent. Scarlett slipped under the covers. She was wearing that black lace teddy I'd accidentally seen once, if you could even call a few strategically placed straps an item of clothing. I feigned sleep, feeling her adjust her position until her back was pressed lightly against mine, like a cat seeking warmth. This was the strangest part of our marriage, polite and distant by day, occasional bedmates by night, though we never crossed the line. The first time it happened, I'd been so surprised I stayed awake all night. Now, it was just part of our routine. I didn't know why she did it, just as I didn't know why I never told her to stop. The alarm went off at 6:00 a.m. The space beside me was already empty. Only a faint indentation on the pillow and the lingering scent of jasmine proved she had been there at all. I reached over and touched the spot where she had lain. It was already cold. Downstairs, Scarlett was already dressed, sitting at the dining table reading the Wall Street Journal. A black coffee and a piece of whole wheat toast sat before her. Today she wore a sharp white pantsuit, her hair pulled back in an elegant chignon. You'd never guess she was the same woman from last night. "Morning," she said without looking up. I poured myself a glass of orange juice and sat across from her. "What's your schedule today?" "Board meeting this morning, then meeting with 2 investors this afternoon." She finally looked up, faint shadows under her eyes. "You?" "Testing a new battery prototype at the lab." I paused. "By the way, my father's birthday dinner is next Wednesday. Don't forget." Scarlett put down the paper, her face breaking into a perfect, meteor-ready smile. "Of course. I've already got his gift, a signed first edition of The Great Gatsby. I heard he's gotten into collecting rare books lately." "You're always so thoughtful." "Clause 5, she said, mimicking my tone from the night before. "We must present a loving and harmonious front to our respective families." I nodded and said nothing more. Breakfast ended in silence, punctuated only by the soft clinking of silverware. At 7:30 a.m., our respective cars pulled out of the garage. One turned left, the other right, like 2 parallel lines destined never to intersect. But I knew that tonight or the next, Scarlett would find a way to break that parallel. A late-night text, a drunken phone call, or another silent visit to my side of the bed. It was our own twisted understanding, a game that neither of us had ever called. Chapter 2. On Wednesday evening at 6, I stood before the mirror in my closet, adjusting my bow tie. The man looking back was dressed in a custom black tuxedo, tailored to perfection. The door opened, and Scarlett walked in. Her hair was swept into an intricate updo, with 2 carefully curled tendrils framing her face. A deep crimson, mermaid-style gown clung to her curves, creating a breathtaking silhouette. "Can you get this for me?" She turned, revealing a swath of flawless white skin. Her spine curved elegantly down to the small of her back, where the dress's low cut offered a tantalizing glimpse of her dimples. My fingers brushed against her cool skin as I smelled the perfume from the nape of her neck. Not her usual jasmine, but a richer blend of rose and amber. This was her battle armor scent, reserved for high-stakes client meetings. "Nervous?" I asked with a small smile, fastening the hidden clasp. My fingertips lingered for a second on her shoulder blade. Scarlett turned back to the mirror, adjusting a diamond earring. "It's Dad's 60th. Half the business world will be there. Of course it has to be taken seriously." She opened her jewelry box and slipped on her wedding ring. I noticed a faint, pale band on her finger. Even when she was out with other men, she never took it off. "The gift is in the back seat," she said, her red lips curving into a flawless smile. The Hayes estate was ablaze with light, the circular driveway packed with luxury cars. Scarlett and I linked arms, a practiced gesture. The moment we stepped through the grand entrance, our expressions shifted. My lips curved into a warm smile, her eyes softened, and we transformed into the very picture of a blissfully married couple. "Caleb, Scarlett," my father boomed, walking over with several board members in tow. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, handing him the gift-wrapped box. "Scarlett picked this out especially for you." Scarlett added sweetly, "It's a signed, first edition of The Great Gatsby. We heard you'd started collecting them." My father's eyes lit up as he opened the box. This is a genuine first printing." He patted Scarlett's hand affectionately. My daughter-in-law knows me best. Scarlett smiled modestly, but I saw the tips of her ears turn pink, the way they always did when she was praised. My father pulled her away to introduce her to some of his collector friends, while I was cornered by the board members to discuss new energy tax credits. As the evening wore on, I occasionally glanced in Scarlett's direction. She moved through the crowd with effortless grace, a perfect hostess, laughing and conversing, the quintessential Vance heiress. A room was never dull with her in it. "Your wife is stunning, cuz." My cousin, Brandon Hayes, appeared at my side, handing me a glass of whiskey. "I hear she's been getting cozy with the youngest son from the Foster family?" I took a sip, the ice clinking in glass. "You actually believe the tabloids?" "The whole city knows Scarlett changes boyfriends more often than she changes her handbags," Brandon said pointedly. "You're the only one who can stay so calm about it." I followed his gaze and saw Scarlett looking back at me from across the ballroom. Our eyes met. She gave a slight blink, her lashes casting fleeting shadows, and the corner of her mouth quirked up in a tiny smile only I would understand. It was our signal. She needed an escape. "Excuse me." I set down my glass, crossed the room, and slid my arm around her waist. "Sorry to interrupt, everyone, but I need to borrow my wife for a moment." The second we were out of sight, Scarlett let out a long breath, her shoulders slumping. That Mr. Henderson was giving me a 2-hour lecture on the history of vintage Porsches. Even the queen of schmoozing gets tired. I handed her a glass of champagne. She downed it in one go, the column of her throat moving gracefully. A faint trace of her lipstick remained on the rim. "I don't have to pretend with you," she said. "Another hour, and we can leave." "Deal." The party was winding down around midnight. As guests began to depart, my parents asked us to join them in the study. "Caleb, Scarlett," my mother began, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. "You've been married for almost a year. It's time to start thinking about putting a baby on the agenda." Her words were a stone tossed into a still pond, sending ripples of tension between Scarlett and me. Scarlett's hand, reaching for her purse, froze midair. I saw her knuckles turn white. A second later, her perfect smile was back in place as she looked at my mother. "We're already planning on it, Mom." "That's right," I added, following her lead. My mother's eyes brightened. My father put down his glass, looking at us with renewed interest. My temples started to throb. The contract made no mention of children. "Really?" My mother pressed, delighted. "When did you start trying?" I placed my hand over Scarlett's, feeling the slight tremble in her fingers. "For the last few months," I said, deliberately lowering my voice. "But Scarlett's been under a lot of stress at work. Her doctor recommended she focus on her health first." Scarlett quickly picked up the thread. "Caleb has been so supportive. He even hired a nutritionist to create a special meal plan for me." She turned her hand over and laced her fingers with mine, an uncharacteristic warmth spreading where our palms met. My mother nodded, satisfied. "That's good. You young people are always burning the candle at both ends." Then she added, "You haven't stayed the night in ages. Why don't you stay here tonight? Your old room is all ready for you." "Mom, I have an early meeting." I started to protest. "It's settled," my father said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Scarlett and I exchanged a look. Refusing would be suspicious. Accepting would mean, "Okay," we said in unison, then paused, surprised by our own synchronicity. After the party, my parents watched as we walked back to my old room. The moment the door clicked shut, Scarlett dropped my hand. She turned to me, a small smile on her face, and collapsed onto the armchair, kicking off her heels. "Quick thinking back there," I said, loosening my bow tie. "Already planning on it? You've had quite a bit of wine tonight for someone who's trying to conceive." Scarlett's expression hardened with that familiar stubbornness. What was I supposed to do? Say no right to her face? I couldn't argue with that. Without another word, she disappeared into the en-suite bathroom. I heard the shower start as I sat at the desk and opened my laptop to deal with some emails. When I came out of the shower, Scarlett had turned off the main lights, leaving only a single lamp on by the bed. She was lying on her side, facing away from me, the covers pulled up to her shoulders. Her breathing was so steady she could have been asleep. I quietly got in the other side of the king-sized bed, leaving enough space between us for another 2 people. In the darkness, every sense was magnified. I could smell the jasmine from her hair, hear the soft rhythm of her breathing, and even feel the slight shift of the mattress as she moved. "Caleb," she whispered suddenly. Do I need to fulfill my wifely duties?" Scarlett asked, a teasing laugh in her voice. "No, that's all right. It's late, and we both have to be up early." "Are you sure?" She rolled over. I could feel her gaze on my back. "This is a limited-time offer, you know." "Good night, Scarlett," I said softly. The room fell silent once more. Chapter 3. When the morning light filtered through the gap in the curtains, I woke to find a warm, soft body in my arms. Scarlett was curled against my chest, one hand resting on my waist, her breathing deep and even. One of her legs was draped over mine, her silk nightgown having ridden up to the top of her thigh, revealing a long expanse of pale skin. The light traced the delicate profile of her face. Her eyelashes cast tiny shadows on her cheeks, and her lips were curved into a slight smile, as if she were having a pleasant dream. This version of Scarlett was a stranger to me, defenseless, soft, like a cat with its claws retracted. Last night's provocative question, "Do I need to fulfill my wifely duties?" still echoed in my ears, laced with her signature blend of challenge and curiosity. My phone on the nightstand started to vibrate. Scarlett frowned, burrowing deeper into my embrace. I stretched my arm out to grab it. It was my assistant. "Mr. Hayes, should we move the 10 a.m. meeting? You mentioned yesterday you might want to push it to 9:30. I glanced at the clock. 8:40 a.m. In my arms, Scarlett stirred, her brow furrowed. "Reschedule it for this afternoon." After I hung up, I turned my head. Scarlett was awake, propped up on one elbow, watching me. The neckline of her nightgown had slipped, revealing the small beauty mark just above her collarbone. She stretched languidly, her arms reaching above her head, the line of her waist a tantalizing curve beneath the silk. Scarlett ran a hand through her hair. "Is something wrong?" "No, just slept in. Had to move a meeting." She tossed the covers aside and padded barefoot across the carpet. The hem of her nightgown swayed with her movements, showing off her slender ankles and the gold chain I'd given her. She stopped in front of me, looking up, still radiating the warmth of the bed and that faint jasmine scent. "Breakfast together?" she asked suddenly, seeing as we're both already late. "Okay." Half an hour later, we were seated at a table in the Hayes family sunroom. Scarlett had changed into a casual white shirt, the cuffs rolled up to her elbows, and jeans. She sipped her coffee while her eyes remained glued to the stock market data on her tablet. Her phone buzzed, and a name flashed across the screen: Leo Foster, the model from the club. Scarlett froze for a second, then glanced up at me. I kept my attention on the omelet I was cutting, pretending not to notice. After the third ring, she declined the call. "Not going to answer that." I asked casually. "I'm eating," she said, taking a large bite of a waffle, getting a smear of whipped cream on her lip. I handed her a napkin, and she took it, dabbing at her mouth. "I have work to get to this morning. Do you need a ride?" I asked, finishing the last of my breakfast. "No, my assistant is on his way." "I have a date today," Scarlett said, giving me a small, pointed smile. "All right then. I'm heading out." "Have fun," I said, grabbing my phone and briefcase. Scarlett looked up at me, her eyes narrowing. "You don't care?" I returned her gaze with a perfect smile of my own. "I'm leaving now." She suddenly broke into a laugh, her red lips forming a sly curve. "Caleb Hayes, you are the perfect husband." She enunciated the last two words with deliberate care, as if savoring a piece of candy she was reluctant to let melt. Chapter 4. Halfway through the board meeting, my phone vibrated silently in my suit pocket. I slid it out to see a message from my assistant frowny face. "Mrs. Hayes is at the NYC Fashion Week event with Leo Foster. A lot of press are there." A few photos followed. Scarlett was in a champagne-colored gown with a thigh-high slit that offered glimpses of her long legs. She was on the arm of the young model, smiling brightly for the flashing cameras. The most glaring detail was the pair of diamond earrings she wore, the gift I'd given her for her birthday last month, now sparkling under the glare of the paparazzi. "Mr. Hayes?" The CFO paused his presentation, looking at me with a questioning expression. I locked my phone, tapping my finger against its edge. "Continue." After the meeting, I went straight to the PR department. The director, Linda, was already waiting, several Gossip magazine mock-ups spread across her desk. It's a bit of a situation, she said, pushing up her glasses. Star Weekly is planning a feature. The headline is, Marriage on the Rocks. Vance heiress returns to her wild ways. I flipped through the pages. The photos were sharp, including a close-up of Scarlett adjusting the model's bow tie. Call their editor-in-chief and get our online team to manage the sentiment, I instructed, closing the magazine. Coordinate with the Vance Corporation's PR team if you need to. Linda hesitated for a moment before nodding. I'll get on it right away. Stepping out of the office building, the early summer sun felt hot and sharp. I ducked into a quiet coffee shop around the corner and ordered an iced Americano. Condensation dripped from the cold glass onto my fingers. Caleb Hayes, what a coincidence. I turned to see Chloe Sullivan standing by my table, holding a coffee. She was dressed in a beige power suit, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She was a high school classmate who was now a director at a rival PR firm. Mind if I sit? She slid into the chair opposite me without waiting for an answer, pulling a file from her briefcase. There's something you should see. It was a media sentiment report. The cover page was a photo of Scarlett and Leo Foster at the fashion show. Our firm just landed this account, she said, lowering her voice and tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the photo. Someone's paying big money to push this narrative. They've already contacted at least 5 major media outlets. I closed the file, the ice in my glass clinking softly. Thanks for the heads up. Don't thank me yet, Chloe said, stirring her latte and leaning closer. Seriously, what is going on with you and Scarlett? You've seen the pictures, I said, taking a sip of the bitter coffee. Chloe rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Everyone in our circle knows about Scarlett's hobbies. She smirked. I have to say, the Hayes family is remarkably tolerant, letting her flaunt that right up to Fashion Week. After you two got married, she was quiet for all of 2 months before she was back to her old tricks. Only you could put up with it. I mean, it's not unusual for rich men to have mistresses, but for a wife to be so blatant about it. That's our private business, I interrupted, my voice still even. As I left the coffee shop, I received a text. It was from Scarlett's father, summoning her home. As expected, the atmosphere at the Vance mansion was explosive. The second I stepped into the foyer, I heard her father's furious roar. How could you be so reckless? In the living room, Scarlett was standing ramrod straight on the marble floor, her father, Mr. Vance, looking apoplectic. Her mother was dabbing her eyes with a tissue nearby. Dad, Mom, I said, walking quickly to stand slightly in front of Scarlett. Look at this. Her father shoved a tablet at me, the screen filled with the infuriating photos. You're a married woman. How can you be so shameless? From behind me, Scarlett let out a soft, defiant laugh. It's just a few pictures. Be quiet. Mr. Vance slammed his hand on the coffee table, making the teacups rattle. I picked up the tablet. Dad, please calm down. I've already had my team handle these reports. It's just the media taking things out of context. Don't defend her, Caleb. Mrs. Vance sobbed. We spoiled this girl rotten. And now, even after getting married, she's still Mom, I said, gently guiding her to a sofa. Scarlett was just attending an event with a friend. She didn't do anything inappropriate. You know how reporters love to stir up drama. Mr. Vance snorted. A friend. How many friends has she had in the last 6 months? I glanced at Scarlett. In my periphery, I could see her head was bowed slightly, the indifferent smile on her lips looking forced. She shifted her weight, her knees probably aching from standing so long in heels. Dad, I'll take Scarlett home and we'll talk about this, I said, reaching for her hand. Her fingertips were ice cold. As she let me lead her away, she stumbled slightly, her nails digging a small crescent into my palm. Before we left, Mr. Vance put a heavy hand on my shoulder. Caleb, you're too lenient with her. He sighed deeply. We just want you two to have a good life together. On the drive home, Scarlett stared out the window. The setting sun cast a golden glow on her profile, her lashes creating a fine web of shadows. Thank you, she said after a long silence. You're welcome. Her fingers unconsciously rubbed the spot on her knee where the fabric of her dress had been pressing. You don't have to do this, you know. Do what? Come to my rescue every time, she said, turning to face me, her eyes unusually bright in the twilight. I can handle it myself. I kept my eyes on the gridlocked traffic ahead. I know you can. Scarlett laughed, a soft, breathy sound. She reached out and toyed with my perfectly knotted tie. You know something, Caleb Hayes? Her fingertips brushed against my throat. Sometimes you're too perfect. So perfect you don't seem real. I'll let her tug my tie, ask you. There's a charity gala tonight. Want to go? No, she said, pulling her hand back. I have plans. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Linda, frowny face. All print stories have been pulled, but online chatter is still high. Should we issue a joint statement? I texted back, frowny face, no. When I locked the screen, I saw Scarlett watching me with an unreadable Mona Lisa smile. The city lights flickered across her face, obscuring her expression. What? I asked. Nothing, she said, turning back to the rushing scenery. Just wondering how long you can keep up this perfect act. I didn't answer. As we drove through the gates of our estate, the landscape lights switched on one by one, illuminating her silhouette in flashes of light and shadow. Chapter 5. The air conditioning hit me as I opened the front door. The thermostat was set low. Scarlett was curled up on the sofa, her long legs propped up on the edge of the coffee table. She was wearing a champagne-colored silk slip dress with spaghetti straps that looked like they could snap with a single tug. The warm light from the floor lamp cast a pearly glow on her skin. The gold chain on her ankle glinted as she subtly flexed her foot. You're back, she said without looking up, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. How was the gala? I hung up my suit jacket and loosened my tie. The usual. I walked to the kitchen for a glass of water, my eyes scanning the counter. 2 clean glasses were upside down on the drying rack. A bottle of sparkling water was missing from the fridge, her go-to when she was working. The slippers at the entryway were in their proper place. All signs pointed to the fact that she had been home alone all night. Scarlett closed her laptop and stretched. The strap of her dress slipped off one shoulder, revealing the mole on her collarbone. You smell like champagne, she said, wrinkling her nose. Go change. I sat down in the armchair opposite her and opened my work tablet. In a minute, silence settled in the living room, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock. Scarlett's toes curled and uncurled, like a bored cat toying with an invisible mouse. Caleb, she said suddenly, what do you think of Leo Foster? My finger paused on the screen for half a second. I don't know him. I think he's too clingy, Scarlett mused, tilting her head as a strand of hair fell across her cheek. We've only known each other a month, and he texts me constantly. It's exhausting. I swiped to the next email. That's for you to deal with. You know, she said, padding barefoot across the rug and perching on the arm of my chair. He actually asked if he could pick me up from the house today. She let out a small laugh, her light, clean scent drifting over. I told him my husband doesn't like strangers in our home. I looked up at her. The lamplight created a soft halo around her, her eyelashes casting fan-like shadows on her cheeks. And I asked, and what? She blinked. I told him we'd reschedule. Her finger tapped my shoulder lightly. You have a hair on you. I glanced over. She was holding a single long, dark hair, clearly her own. By the way, she said, hopping off the armrest, I have to go to Miami tomorrow for a business event. When are you back? What? She turned, her smile just visible in the backlit silhouette. Gonna pick me up from the airport. Depends. Scarlett laughed and padded up the stairs. At the landing, she stopped. Caleb, are you ever curious about what I do when I go out with them? I put down my tablet and met her gaze. Do you need to report to me? We stared at each other for 3 long seconds. She was the first to look away, twisting the strand of hair around her finger. Good night. Her footsteps faded down the second-floor hallway. I picked up my tablet again, realizing I'd been staring at the same email for far too long. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves of the sycamore trees in the garden. I got up to turn off the main living room light. As my fingers hit the switch, they came away with a slight, slick residue. Scarlett always touched everything right after putting on hand cream. Chapter 6. The rain in Miami came down in a sudden, violent torrent. Scarlett stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her hotel suite, watching the streaks of water race down the glass. Her phone vibrated in her hand. It was the 17th text from Leo Foster, frowny face. Scarlett, I'm in the hotel lobby. Just give me 5 minutes. She scoffed and tossed the phone onto the bed. The boy had no sense of boundaries. He had followed her from New York, pranced around the event like a peacock in heat, and now he had the audacity to corner her at her hotel. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Scarlett saw Leo's rain-slicked face. He was holding a massive bouquet of red roses. "Scarlett, I know you're in there." His voice came, muffled through the door. "Just give me a chance." She yanked the door open. Leo's face lit up, but before he could speak, her icy stare stopped him cold. "Listen to me," she said, poking a finger into his chest. "We're done. If you bother me again, I will make sure you never work in the fashion industry again." The color drained from Leo's face. "Why? What did I do wrong? I can change." "Save it," Scarlett said, her eyes flicking disdainfully to the roses. "Did you really think I was interested in you? What makes you think I would ever actually cheat on my husband?" She slammed the door in his face, the click of the deadbolt echoing in the silent room. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from her assistant, frowny face. "Mr. Hayes is at a high school reunion tonight. Location, the Waldorf Astoria." Scarlett's fingers hovered over the screen. What was it that Chloe Sullivan had said, that Caleb had a secret crush back in high school? She bit her lip and dialed her driver. "We're going back to New York. Now." The Waldorf Astoria was a beacon of light in the rainy night. Scarlett sat in the car, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel. She had been waiting for 40 minutes, and Caleb still hadn't come out. The rain blurred the windows, and she could only watch the entrance through the sweeping path of the wipers. 10 more minutes, she muttered to herself. "Then I'm going in." Just then, a familiar figure emerged from the revolving doors. Caleb, alone, holding a large black umbrella. He was walking into the rain, his suit immaculate, his steps steady. He clearly hadn't been drinking much. Scarlett immediately threw open her car door. "Caleb!" He turned, his face surprised as he lifted the umbrella. "Scarlett, what are you doing here?" She ran toward him, the rain instantly soaking the ends of her hair. "I just got back from Miami. I was just passing by and saw you." He angled the umbrella to cover her. "Where's your car?" "Right over there," she said, pointing, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Want to ride home?" He nodded and, ever the gentleman, opened the passenger door for her. As she slid into the driver's seat, she snuck a look at him in the rearview mirror. His expression was normal. He smelled only faintly of alcohol, and his tie was still perfectly knotted. It was just a regular reunion. She let out a breath. She didn't realize she'd been holding and gripped the steering wheel. Back at the house, Caleb headed straight for his study. Scarlett stood in the middle of the living room, watching his retreating back, and a sudden, inexplicable anger flared in her chest. "Caleb," she called out. He turned. "Yes." Scarlett marched to the bar, pulled out 2 bottles of red wine, and slammed them on the coffee table. "Have a drink with me." He frowned. "I have an early, tonight," she insisted, uncorking a bottle and pouring 2 full glasses. "Sit." Glass after glass went down. Scarlett's cheeks flushed, and her gaze grew hazy. The glass in front of me remained nearly full. I just watched her. "You know," she said, leaning in close, her breath warm with wine. "Leo followed me to Miami today." My fingers traced the rim of my glass. "And I dumped him," she said with a triumphant smile. "He actually thought I would fall for him." Her voice trailed off. "I don't fall for anyone." I stood up. "You've had too much. It's time for bed." "Don't go." She grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. The next thing I knew, she had launched herself into my arms, her lips pressing against the corner of my mouth. I instinctively turned my head, and her kiss landed on my cheek. Scarlett's body went rigid. She pulled back slowly, the drunken haze in her eyes replaced by a raw, lucid pain. You're rejecting me." "Scarlett, you're drunk." "I'm not drunk," she cried, her voice cracking as her eyes filled with tears. "Why? Why are you always like this?" Her fingers clenched the lapels of my jacket. "I've made a move on you so many times. Why won't you ever accept me? Is it because you think I'm tainted?" I took hold of her wrists. "You've had too much to drink." "I'm not tainted," she yelled, the tears finally breaking free. "They were all fake. All of them. I've only ever loved you." I stared at her, confused. "You think I didn't know?" she sobbed. "You've always seen me as a little sister. In high school, I saw you with that other girl." She wiped at her tears messily. "I thought you'd eventually fall for me. Every time you stood up for me, protected me. I wanted you to see me, really see me, with love in your eyes. When I brought other guys to you and called them my boyfriend, You just congratulated me. How could you just congratulate me? My own breath hitched. I thought you. You thought I liked changing boyfriends? Scarlett laughed, a bitter, broken sound. I was trying to make you jealous. I wanted to see you react, to make you do something. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But you were always so perfect, so unshakable. My throat felt tight. The contract, marriage. To hell with the contract. She grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at me. That was my last resort. I knew your family was arranging a marriage for you, and I knew you were focused on your career and didn't want to get married. So I proposed the contract. Her shoulders began to shake. For those first 2 months, I was so happy. I felt like a real wife. Why do you think that was? Because I didn't want to act anymore. I stared at her, reaching out to wipe a tear from her cheek. But you did nothing. So I went back to my old tricks, parading other men in front of you. Scarlett's smile was tragic. I thought, as my husband, surely you'd get angry. I told myself that if you just got angry, I would tell you everything, that I've always loved you. The tears fell silently now. But you never did. You were always so calm, always holding up that damn contract. I lower my head, my own eyes clouded. The year you turned 16. That year, I gave you a bracelet. My voice came out raspy. I said, you're my girl now. The second half of that sentence was, I love you. But then I saw you with another boyfriend, and I thought. Scarlett's eyes widened. What bracelet? Your birthday. The silver chain I spent a week making by hand. I gave a hollow laugh. The next day, I saw you holding hands with that guy from the other class. Scarlett suddenly bolted upstairs. She returned a moment later with a small jewelry box. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside lay a tarnished, blackened silver chain. This one, I've kept it all this time. Why? Because you gave it to me, she cried, her sobs growing louder. That boy was just helping me pick up something I dropped. You didn't even ask. You just sentenced me without a trial. I'm sorry, I thought. I reached for her again, but she flinched away. I hate you. And I hate myself, Scarlett whispered, swaying as she stood up. She turned to leave, but I grabbed her arm and pulled her back. In a dizzying motion, I had her pinned beneath me on the sofa. My eyes were wild in the dim light. Scarlett, are you sure they were all fake? 100%, she shot back, lifting her chin defiantly. What's the matter, Caleb? Finally feeling a little jealous. My answer was a searing kiss. It was a kiss filled with 12 years of waiting and misunderstanding. A kiss that threatened to consume her entirely. Scarlett froze for a second, then responded with equal fervor, her fingers tangling deep in my hair. I woke as morning light streamed through the curtains. Scarlett was curled in my arms, her eyelashes casting soft shadows, the ghost of a smile on her lips. Her hair was fanned out across my arm, smelling faintly of orange blossoms. I shifted slightly. The rumpled sheets and clothes scattered on the floor were a testament to last night's passion. My eyes fell on a small, dark red stain on the white sheets, and my heart clenched. Proof that she was truly, finally my wife. The woman in my arms stirred, her eyes fluttering open. The moment our gazes met, a deep blush spread across her cheeks, and she buried her face in my chest. Does it hurt? I asked softly, my fingers tracing her bare shoulder. Scarlett shook her head, her hair tickling my skin. After a moment, she looked up, a familiar mischievous glint in her eyes. Caleb Hayes, you breached the contract. I leaned down and captured her lips before she could say more. New contract. Clause 1. The husband may kiss the wife at any time. Scarlett laughed, dodging my next kiss. Who said I was signing a new contract with you? You did. Last night. I murmured, running my fingers through her hair. You agreed to a lifetime term. She blushed and leaned in to peck my lips. Then we need to add a few amendments. A minimum of 3 kisses per day. Deal. The sun climbed higher, bathing the bed in light, but neither of us moved. Scarlett was attached to me like a koala, her finger tracing idle circles on my chest. I've made a decision, she said suddenly. Oh, I'm giving the CEO position back to my dad. She looked up at me. I never really wanted to be a CEO anyway. I raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want to be? Mrs. Hayes, she said, her eyes curving into crescents. I just want to be Mrs. Hayes. Her answer sent a surge of heat through me. I tightened my arms around her. No regrets. Scarlett shook her head, her hair rustling against the pillow. I'm tired of the last 12 years, she whispered, her fingertips tracing my jawline. From now on, I just want to make up for lost time with you. 3 months later, we were standing on the balcony of a cliffside hotel in Santorini, the Aegean wind catching the hem of Scarlett's dress. She had been sleeping a lot lately, and this morning, the smell of olive oil at breakfast had sent her running for the bathroom. I think, she began, chewing on her lip as she looked at me. I think I might be pregnant. The 2 red lines on the drugstore test made my hands tremble, a rare occurrence. A visit to the local clinic confirmed it. 5 weeks. If we count back, I said with a grin, it must have been that night in Paris. Scarlett blushed and playfully smacked my arm, but all I could think about was that wild, unforgettable night under the Eiffel Tower. The news sent both our families into a frenzy. Her father sent a private jet to pick us up, and her mother had a vat of restorative soup waiting. My own father, the stoic, ever-serious Chairman Hayes, clapped me on the shoulder, his eyes suspiciously shiny. A year later, on a perfect spring afternoon, Scarlett was curled up in my lap like a contented cat under the cherry blossom tree in our garden. She was in a loose-fitting sundress, her hair in a messy ponytail, looking nothing like the formidable sow she once was. In a stroller before us, our daughter was sleeping soundly. She had Scarlett's eyes on my nose, her tiny fists clenched as she dreamed. "Honey," Scarlett said, tilting her head back, her eyes sparkling. "When can we have another one?" I looked down at her. "No rush. But I want to give you lots and lots of kids," she said, her finger drawing circles on my shirt again. "Maybe 5. 2 boys and 3 girls." I caught her restless hand in mine. Why the sudden urge? Scarlett shifted to straddle my lap, her arms wrapping around my neck. "So you can never, ever leave me," she whispered, her warm breath tickling my ear. "I'm going to tie you down with babies for the rest of your life." I laughed and kissed her. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw our daughter's big, round eyes watching us. Scarlett followed my gaze and immediately hopped off my lap. "Oh, sweetie, you're awake." She bent down and lifted our daughter into her arms, peppering her face with kisses. "Did Mommy and Daddy wake you up?" The baby giggled, reaching out to grab a fistful of Scarlett's hair. Sunlight filtered through the cherry blossoms, dappling them in shifting patterns of light and shadow. In that moment, I thought a girl in a school uniform 13 years ago, standing under this very tree, nervously handing me a piece of poorly wrapped, handmade chocolate. "Honey," Scarlett's voice pulled me from my reverie. "What are you daydreaming about?" I walked over and wrapped my arms around both of them. "About you." "So cheesy," she grumbled, but she leaned into the embrace. Our daughter curiously grabbed at my tie, and Scarlett laughed, trying to rescue it. The 3 of us dissolved into a playful tangle. The cherry blossoms fell around us like pink snow. From childhood friends to a family of 3, it took us more than a decade to find our way here. But that was all right. We had the rest of our lives to write the next chapter together.